Has anyone ever challenged you to something you are an expert at? In the Marine Corps they do a lot of wrestling / grappling as training and exercise. Well, for a Marine I was a pretty imposing looking person. Little did they know that I had been doing Jiu-Jitsu, a form of grappling, for about 4 or 5 years before joining. So more than a few times I would have these big weightlifter, meathead types challenge me to grappling only for me to wipe the floor with them. It kind of became a joke once people caught on, and when we would get new guys to the unit, the guys in the know would trick them into grappling against me. At the county fair I was on the receiving end of some ill-natured heckling from a couple of farm hands. Real good old boy types. They were being dickheads to everybody who signed up for the skid loader rodeo, smack talking anybody with how shit hot they are, and how anybody else is just embarrassing themselves. For whatever reason they especially targeted me with their Lamasaurus rural Iowa smack talk. It got to the point where the one got on my face. To make a boring story short, I manage an agricultural business. All I do at said business is operate a skid street tractor. I won $10 and made a pair of brothers eat crow. I had an athletic scholarship in college. I swam. But after college, I went to graduate school, biochemistry, and proceeded to lose the swimmer physique. However, you don't lose technique. So, the wife and in-laws and I are at a resort in Puerto Rico one day and I swam across the pool to meet them, and some guys started talking up their friend to go challenge me to a race. The dude came over, he was ripped, all like Andy, and challenged me to a race across the pool and back, and the loser had to buy the other group a round of drinks. There were about 8 of them, and 4 of us. It was about 30 yards or so nearly a 50-meter freestyle, and I was a sprinter. In college I had a high 23-second time in the event. So, I agree, and watch him swim, and touch the other side. That's when I turned that mother freaker on, and underwater kick to a flip turn, and then burst out beast mode on the return. I hit the wall when he was a little over halfway back. Needless to say, he bought us all a round of beers, and we actually ended up seeing them several times over the next week. He was a really cool dude, but was obviously really embarrassed. Now that I think about it, I hope either he or one of his friends are a Redditor and see this. Somebody challenged me to play a round of Age of Empires 2, medieval strategy computer game, against him. I used to play that game on a competitive level, so I just proceeded to play at roughly the same snail's pace speed he did. Sometimes attack him with a weak arm is to make it look like I'm struggling to beat him, while in reality 90% of my traps were tucked away hidden in the back of my lands. It was closed off arena map that made it really easy to hide them from him. So I continue to act like I'm struggling and slowly start to give in to his siege attacks, making it look he's actually going to win the game. At one point he asks in a victoriously smug voice, "So looks like the game is over, right?" To which I reply, "Looks like it." And before he could say anything else, roughly 100 fully upgraded elite Teutonic knights emerged from my side of the fog of war and proceeded to annihilate everything in their path. His reaction was priceless. It went from complete disbelief, "Where are all those units from?" to denial, "You cheating a shat," and various other emotions, while I just had a hearty laugh. So I enter a round robin pool competition in Cairns, Australia. At this point in my life I look, well, a little scraggly. I'm also a bit more than half pissed, and my first match is against this very snazzily dressed bloke with slicked back hair who proceeds to screw his very expensive queue together as I sit on the bar stool nursing a jug of beer with a mate, the shitty house queue resting up against the table. This guy has clearly watched The Color of Money a number of times, and arrogance wafts off him like so many dollar bills from an easy mark. Now, I'm not the best pool player in the known universe, but I did get my own pool table as my 10th birthday present, and I played that shitty, warped fucker every single day for years. I then spent most of my life from 16 to 21 playing pool in bars in New Zealand. So, yeah, no, I'm alright. So, anyway, Tom Cruise over here makes eye contact for the first time and I say hello and compliment him on his rather nice cue. He responds by saying, "Don't worry buddy, I'll go easy on ya." Coin flip, it's my break. I down the rest of my beer and sink to off the break and proceed to have a dream run. I'm in that wonderful place between slightly buzzed and rather pissed where everything just feels right, and I'm sinking every shot with perfect weight and spin. to bring the white into position for the next shot. 5 down, 6, 7. I'm on the black and Mr. Shark over here with the dude hasn't had a shot. The shot is actually not that hard, and being one of those perfect moments, I carp diem by lining it up, and then look up at him to lock eye contact as I hit the white, watch the black drop in my peripheral vision, smile, and nod. My mate, meanwhile, is pissing himself laughing. Old mate doesn't even shake my hand, walks out of the hall without saying a word. Drank too much beer afterwards, and didn't win the comp. Was drinking with friends at a nightclub known for getting rowdy at times. Some guy and I bumped into each other. No one's fault, just the sort of shit that happens in a crowded and dark room. We both spill a few sips of our drinks. I'm just about ready to say no big deal and forget the entire event, but he flips off. Tells me I owe him another drink. No, I don't. He starts swearing at me, telling me I need to buy him another fucking drink or he will just take all of my money and buy it himself. Typical story from anyone who's dealt with a dipshit drunk in a bar looking for a fight. I work security in a hospital. A big hospital with a busy ER and a psych unit. We get in fights almost every other day. At least once a month, if not more, we get into a really good fight. I'm talking, fighting some giant juice monkey on methamphetamines who's fighting like his life is on the line. We get 1 week, 40 hours, of fairly intense self-defense training per year, counter-strikes, and takedowns mostly. So, this guy doesn't scare me. I tell him one last time to drop it, and try to walk past him. He puts one hand on my chest and tries to grab for my wallet, probably assuming I'd pussy out, and let him take it. I grabbed his hand, awkwarded it around, jammed it up his back pretty hard, and gave him as hard a shove as I could in a crowded little room. Must have hurt his shoulder pretty good, but no actual damage would have been done. He stumbled a few steps away, and then slunk off without looking around. I used to play trumpet in a local symphony. I gave it up, because people became too competitive and dicks, rather than just accepting the fact that we were making music. My friend was in the orchestra as well as a violin player. After I had quit I went to one of the concerts, and afterward, I had no trouble getting backstage, because I used to be tight with the security guard back when I played. So I met up with my friend, and he asked what I thought about things, and how they sounded. After I gave him my thoughts, he joked that they were missing a strong trumpet part. This launched me into a little critique of the brass section. Just then this girl, must have been fairly new, because I have no idea who she was, walks up to me and says very bitch-like, "I overheard what you're saying. Who in the hell do you think you are to criticize our music like that?" I simply said, "Honey, I was the principal trumpet player for 5 years." She then tried to make up for her rudeness and asked why I no longer played. I smiled and said, "Because of people like you." I play Star Wars CCG, collectible card game, competitively. Yeah, I know, it's been out of print for like 14 years now, but we still have an active community. A few years back I was playing a pickup game online against a random guy. He was playing a pretty traditional deck, and I was playing a deck that at the time looked absolutely terrible on paper, but worked beautifully. The matchup was especially bad for him, and I'm a pretty strong player. As soon as I saw what he was playing, I knew I was going to win, and informed him of this, and I totally destroyed him. He kinda goes on tilt and he's talking shit about my deck. Let's play again. No way will I lose to that pile of trash 2 games in a row. I shrug my shoulders and win handily again. He still insists that my deck is terrible. Then I inform him, this deck just got second at Worlds a couple months ago. Trust me, it's pretty good. Yeah, well who played it? That deck looks terrible. I did. Unfortunately yes. It never turns out well, because I make vaccines for a living. People posting on Facebook, new parents discussing why they don't want to vaccinate their newborns. Friends and relatives talking about the latest sensationalist story they heard on why Big Pharma is a terrible evil conspiracy. I've been in the industry for 6 years now, have an education in chemical engineering. I've worked with live infectious diseases, primarily pertussis and polio, been part of the manufacturing process from growing the bacteria, inactivation/lysing, purification, vial filling, start to finish. I know how they work, what the history of how they used to be made is, how seriously pharma companies take adverse events, and I know firsthand how dangerous these diseases can be. But it doesn't matter, because that picture that someone shared on Facebook with a sad story about their child dying obviously knows more than me. Even when I try to explain how it actually works, their eyes glaze over and nothing gets through. It's really frustrating, having all the answers to every one of their concerns, and not being able to reassure them, because they are too stupid to understand basic biology. I was at a training class in Arizona a few years ago for people in a bunch of different industries. One guy was the head of quality for a particular and well-known winery in California. We all go out to dinner, and this guy orders a fairly expensive glass of wine from his winery at a restaurant. They brought over the wine, and when he sipped it, he let the waitress know that this was not the wine he ordered. She assured him it was, and brought him another glass. Again, he insisted it was not the right wine. Finally, the manager came over, and our guy revealed himself as head of quality for the winery. The manager stumbled trying to make up a poor reason, and admitted they ran out, and figured they would replace it with a very similar, and as it turns out much cheaper, wine. The look of smug satisfaction on our guy's face was priceless. In college, a coworker of mine hosted a hearts tournament. Buy-in was like $10 and the top person from each of the 8 tables were matched up to play each other in 2 games, and then the top 2 of those played in the championship game. I asked to join in, since he needed people to fill the tables. Do you even know how to play? It won't be like playing on the computer, you know. I think I can manage. Okay, I can give you some pointers if you like. I'm pretty good. I learned how to play hearts at 4, and it's something my family did throughout my childhood. I've always been able to count cards, I guess you would say, and keep track of everything that has been played. I won the championship round with a score of 7. For those of you who don't know, it's like golf. When a player crosses 100 points, the player with the lowest score wins, the person with 118. Mister, let me know if you need any help. That $320 helped pay my rent. Thanks, dude. I have the perfect one for this, except it wasn't me, so please allow me to tell it anyway. Girl I went to high school with was super big into target and trap shooting. She started at really young age, and by the time she was 17 she was not only competitive at international tournaments but winning a few. She went to school on a scholarship for her shooting, and would come home in the summers to work. It was during one of these summers we were all hanging out at a friend's ranch, and this guy who was a few years older than us was bragging about how he'd been the best shot in his unit in Iraq, saying stuff like how officers would request him from other units to go on patrol with them because he could kill us and people from any distance with any gun. Well, a few of us, knowing we had a ringer that would shut this guy up, told him we bet a girl could shoot better than him. So we found a .22 and set up some targets along fence posts about 50 to 150 yards out. Loudmouth soldier boy hit 3 out of 4. Ringer girl not only hit 4 out of 4, she did it in rapid succession, taking probably 3 seconds to shoot all 4 cans dead center. Guy made some excuse about the light not being good or the how a .22 is not a good way to show real talent, and left the party soon after, saying he was going to go meet a girl. This is the best part. As he was getting in his lifted truck, Ringer girl ran up to him, pretended to hand him something, and says, "Here's your nuts back, you may need them." Best party ever, haha. Not exactly expert, but I'm bilingual. I come from the US, but moved to Poland when I was about 6 years old. I'm now 23. However, I don't have an unusual accent in either language. I sound like a normal American when I speak English, and I sound like a normal Pole when I speak Polish. I've had multiple situations where I've corrected someone's English, they challenge me, then realize I'm a native speaker. Whoops. Also funny to hear people talking about me in the other language, English speakers when I'm in Poland, Polish speakers in the UK/us, often being rude, assuming I don't understand. Just as simple as that, so? Or some small phrase and people go all red. I was a competitive swimmer when I was in grade school. Once when I was probably 10 or so, I was at a swim meet out of town and was doing some recreational swimming in the hotel's pool. There were other children and people swimming around, and I noticed this full-grown man who was challenging some of the kids to races. Obviously he was beating all of these 8-year-olds some who were still wearing floaters. I swam over and challenged him to a race. We agreed on the terms, to the other side of the pool and back, and started off. I immediately pulled past him and sprinted across the pool and back. After I reached the other side, before he had barely started he just stopped in the middle of the pool and seemed pretty but that he had just been destroyed in a race by a 10-year-old girl. I was kind of upset that he didn't even try to finish the race once he knew he had lost. Like and subscribe for more Reddit videos.